This is our range, and within the range, people kind of get it confused that there also is this piece of equipment above it, which is called the salamander. But do remember that the salamander is different from the range, which is made up of our gas burners, the flat top, and the oven down here. So remember, our range is made up of those three pieces of equipment. So for our gas burners, to turn on the burners, there's a front one and a back one. The knobs are the same for our burners and for our flat top, so I'll just explain this once. On all the burners, there is no on or off indicated, but the knobs only turn one way, so we know that obviously which direction it's going. And there is a little circle on the top of this knob that kind of has a hole in it, which is the off, to remember. So to turn on the burner, if you just keep turning it, you can see that our front one is ignited, and just turn the knob to indicate how much heat you want to, and that's the same for the back one. So for our flat top, there's two knobs, and that just designates that the flat top or the griddle can be heated into two sections. So more than likely, unless you're making a ton of food, you can probably get by with just turning on half of it. The knobs work the same way as our gas burners. The number one thing to remember with our flat top is that it takes forever to heat up. So if you do have to use it and no one else has used it before you, make sure you come over here first and turn it on, because it could take like 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes to heat up. It just kind of depends. There is an oven right below me to point out and to mention. So for cleaning our burners, you guys won't have to do it, but general maintenance is that the burners get oiled to just stay in that method to keep them nice and preserved. So there is a crumb catch tray right here that you'll want to pull out, and you'll it doesn't fit in the dishwasher, so you'll want to clean it in the 3-sink compartment. And there also is another crumb pan for our flat top, and it's going to be full with water, and you'll just want to take it over to the sink. So to clean the flat top or the griddle, depending on what you cooked, you may have a real big mess. So you'll want to pour some water on it. You won't want to use oil. Using oil on the flat top is only to keep the area and just preserve the stone, but you'll just use water and this brick to clean it. So when you're cleaning it, you just want to work in a forward and back motion on the surface, making sure that you're getting all the food and debris off. And you'll want to work the whole surface, and there's a hole right in the middle that you'll scrape all the food and put it into, and all the food and particles just fall right through. So that part's pretty simple, but just be careful when you're using that brick that your knuckles don't get too close, that you don't burn them. So that is our range, and then right above the range we have the salamander. So for the salamander, there's an on and off knob up here. It's not labeled or anything, but kind of like with the burners, you'll know that the knob only does go one direction. And if you're standing over here looking at it, you can look up, and there's a little pilot light that's lit, and it's a little blue flame. So if that's not lit, you always want to check and make sure the pilot light is on and it's just up here. And if it's not on, you need to tell someone, because your salamander is never going to heat up. So to turn it on, you'll want to turn your knob all the way, and if you're standing here watching it, you can see a flame go across the top of it, and you know it's lit up. So by turning the knob, you can control the amount of heat that's up there. So for the salamander, there's a shelf that pulls out with this lever. It makes it easier so you don't have to struggle getting food up on this shelf. So for the salamander, you can melt cheese, brown something. The easiest way to kind of relate to what it is in your oven, you have your broil feature, and that's kind of what your salamander does. Melt stuff, gets it brown. So you can push the shelf in, and then this lever over here adjusts the height of this shelf to the heat source. So you can adjust it depending on how fast you want to cook it, how brown you want to get your food. You want to be careful when you're pushing in this lever sometimes it doesn't always lock into place right away. You may have to kind of wiggle it a little bit. And do be careful that the initial time you may have to hold two hands so you don't let it bounce up and just go shooting up like that, because it's not very good for the equipment. So just kind of be careful that first time you're doing that. So when you're cooking food in this salamander, you'll want to be careful that you don't forget about it. Often people forget and it gets burnt, so just be mindful of that. So when you're all done, there is a shelf that just pulls out, and this is going to collect crumbs, maybe some bread crumbs or something. It may not be super dirty, but you'll want to go take it over to the sink and wash it out and put it back in the salamander. So that is our salamander and our range.